Anthony Santander has an offer on the table from the Toronto Blue Jays. The Houston Astros may actually be looking to cut some payroll over the next couple of weeks, and the Cardinals are looking for some bullpen help. That and all the trade discussion you could ever hope for next here at The Upside. And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us here at the Upside Sports Network. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe to make sure you guys join us every single night as we break down all the latest headlines from MLB's Hot Stove season and throughout the regular season. Appreciate you guys joining us late on a Saturday evening. Let's get into the headlines. First, Anthony Santander, no surprise, has an offer already on the table from the Toronto Blue Jays. He was reportedly seeking around 5 years, over $100 million. Got to believe that market and the money really is going to be there for him. Originally this offseason, several pundits were saying he was going to get 4 for $80. I think he's easily going to eclipse that, especially when you consider Bregman is probably the best bat left on the market. Then you get a tie, really, between Pete Alonso and Anthony Santander as that next best option offensively. So we'll see where he goes. Houston Astros were long speculated as a team that was going to be in there for Santander. I think they would love to be able to bring him in as a Kyle Tucker replacement. The thing on them is the Houston Astros are $3 million over the luxury tax threshold. It sounds like they have an institutional mandate to get underneath that threshold after making the acquisition of Christian Walker. Great get, but now they've made the trades and gotten the things done that they needed to so far. They're going to have some money left to spend after they move on from Ryan Pressly, but will it be enough for Santander? Many in the industry believe there's not going to be enough for him to come on to the Houston Astros. So that leaves them probably in the lower end market looking for a corner outfield bat to replace Kyle Tucker. So we'll see what they do. There was some speculation out there that they might revisit some other possibilities on the trade market for an infielder, most notably Nolan Arenado. I'm not sure how much legs that really has. I don't really buy that discussion about Paredes moving over to left field as their bat to bring in Nolan Arenado, but they're really hamstrung as far as their finances right now. So item number 1, looks like Santander is going to get the money that he wants, and there's no shortage of teams interested in him. I've seen the Giants be connected, the Angels have been connected, the Tigers at some points have been connected as well, but I would say the favorite right now is clearly the Toronto Blue Jays, and we'll see if they get the job done. They've missed on every single free agent they've tried to bring in this offseason. We'll see if they can get this one across the finish line. Welcome in, everybody. Appreciate you guys joining us. Ethan, Holly, Verlis, Nicholas, VPC, ZX, Heel, welcome back. Welcome back. What Rangers doing on the trade market? When will the Rangers finally get a closer? Ethan, I feel like if the Yates was going to re-sign, it would have happened by now. Last season, he signed quick. Well, first on Yates, he signed quick because he didn't have a whole lot of options out there. We're talking about a 1-year, $4.5 million deal in a very shaky bullpen where he knew he would be getting opportunity. That's why he signed and agreed to the Texas deal. I don't think that the length of this really affects things for Texas. I think he is their priority A, B, and C right now in free agency. And Chris Young, when he's identified a target, usually comes away with what he's looking for. There are tons of options, though, as far as back-end relief help. So to address those rumors, let's talk a little bit about where the Rangers could go via trade. Item number 2 today, we want to get into the St. Louis Cardinals. They're looking for late-inning relief help. And most pundits out there have the belief that they believe the Cardinals, that they're not going to trade Hesley, at least at this point in the offseason. I don't buy it. Again, I've made my case very clear. I think they should trade Hesley because, A, injury risk. B, he has only got, this is the final year of his deal. C, you always worry about poor performance. And Hesley is not exactly the most stable performer out of the bullpen over the last 20 years. I mean, it's a bullpen. They're mercurial talents. I would try to capitalize on that talent. So I wonder if the Cardinals' pursuit of late inning relievers is a way for them to soften the blow of a loss of Ryan Hesley via trade. That's going to be where we kind of get into the Rangers trade discussion, because if they miss on Kirby Yates, I think one of their targets is very likely to be Ryan Hesley. I've seen plenty of articles and plenty of mock trades sent out there by all kinds of fan bases anyway, but none more fervently than the Texas Rangers. Not just talking about fans making these moves, I'm saying there's actual reporting on the ground that the Rangers have at least kicked the tires multiple times with the St. Louis Cardinals in regards to Ryan Hesley. And remember, Mike Maddox, the former pitching coach there in St. Louis, has some familiarity with him. So we saw how that played a factor in their pursuit of Max Scherzer and Jordan Montgomery before. I wonder if that comes into play once again and ends up working out in their favor. But for me, if I'm the Cardinals, I'm looking to move off of Ryan Hesley and see what I can get and just let the young guys eat this season. Whether you put in a guy that has a little bit less experience in an eighth inning role, bring in a veteran reliever who has some closing experience. For instance, Jose Leclerc would be a player I would look to bring in if I'm the Cardinals to be my closer, and let Ryan Hesley go on to Texas. And hey, if Leclerc turns out to be the closer that he was supposed to be with the Rangers, then I really have something. But if I'm the Rangers, I want the high leverage guy that had a great year last year to come in and be my closer, somebody I can count on. Understandably, he's a little more shaky, obviously, than Kirby Yates, but you have to start somewhere. They need a frontline closer more than anything right now in Texas, and we'll see if they get that one done. Item number 3 I want to get into is Jack Flaherty. He had a great season last year with the Detroit Tigers, faltered a little bit down the stretch with the Dodgers, a little shaky in the postseason as well, but he's looking for a significant deal this offseason. I saw several articles out there saying he was going to get north of $100 million this offseason. I'm not sure where he would get that kind of money. Sure, there's money in the game, but I'm not sure anybody's willing to go that length of a contract that would be required to get a $100 million deal. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Blue Jays just to say, hey, we can't get anybody here, so let's go ahead and spend the money and just, get something going for us, to at least have some positivity going into our season. Maybe that's the route they go. But a team like the Baltimore Orioles made their decision bringing in a one-year guy in Charlie Morton for 1 year, $15 million. 1 year for Sugano as well at $13 million. I wouldn't rule them out making a trade for somebody else, but Flaherty doesn't seem like a great reunion there because things didn't work out the first time there. And why would you want to revisit that period of your career if you're Jack Flaherty? Understandably, if the money's great, so be it. But the Orioles aren't exactly giving out cash bonuses on everything. They're not paying a premium for talent. They're looking for deals on this market. And if Jack Flaherty is looking for this offseason to really cash in on his free agent contract, I don't think he's going to do so from Baltimore. There's no shortage of teams that are interested. The Cubs, the Jays, the Giants, and the Tigers are all teams that have kicked the tires repeatedly on his free agency this offseason. I think the Giants are a sneaky team there because I don't think the Cubs really want to go that high as far as salary for Flaherty. Understandably, they have other priorities they're trying to fill, a back-end reliever, bring in some offensive pieces as well. The Giants don't have those same issues. They're just trying to get a better team overall. And so I think it'll really come down to those two teams, the Jays and the Giants for Jack Flaherty. Maybe there'll be a dark horse team. Maybe the Orioles will surprise us. But as it stands right now, I would say probably the Giants and Blue Jays ultimately duke it out for him. But as far as where the Rangers are going to go, I think that's priority number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 right now is closer, up and down right now. Just they need to get somebody at the back end of that bullpen, somebody high leverage guy that they can count on in that role. They've done a nice job rebuilding that bullpen. Now's the time to really get that linchpin in that 9th inning spot. All right, Tehil, something tells me Santander is about to sign, but because the Blue Jays heavy favorites, watch him go to the Astros or some other team. I get the point as far as the Blue Jays not getting anything across the finish line, and that kind of leads everybody else to believe that there's some reason to hesitate why you'd consider them being the favorite. But when you're talking about the money, Santander's not going back to Baltimore. He already lost his job. O'Neill's already taken his spot in that lineup. So that's not going to be an option for him. You look at the Houston Astros. They have $3 million over the luxury tax threshold. The one guy that they're looking to trade is Ryan Presley. That frees up $14 million. That gives you $11 million underneath the tax threshold. That's not enough to sign Santander. So scratch them off the list here. Even if you backload the deal long enough, I still don't think you could get it to where you could you could get his contract underneath that tax threshold. So go ahead and scratch them off the list. As far as the other teams that are looking for a bat in their lineup, pretty much everybody that I've mentioned. The Angels, I think, are the kind of the sleeper team there. If they're looking to make a big splash and Bregman, say, goes to Detroit, or say he doesn't go to Detroit, I think that would be another market for Santander. The Angels, though, would be another one. But I think the Blue Jays are the team most desperate for his services right now, and I think they're going to pony up the money. Second most desperate might be the Angels, just from an Artie Moreno perspective. He stated, or has let it be known, that he wants to make a big splash this offseason, kind of, get some respectability back in their organization. And I don't think this is the way to do it, but it's the way he wants to go. He's the owner of the team. He can make those kinds of decisions. I just think it's the wrong one. But I think the Angels are a legitimate case for him in free agency. Alrighty, let's try to catch up with a few of these comments here. Ethan, I heard the Astros back in on Bregman 2 for 80 with a opt out after the first season to enter free agency next off season. I haven't heard that one, mainly because I think Bregman's still looking to get that long-term deal. If you could send us the information on that one, I'd greatly appreciate it. But I don't think he's going to take a short-term deal. I think he wants to maximize his dollar in free agency. He wants to beat Willie Adames 7 for 182. I think he will easily beat it. I think he'll get over $200 million. I think it's just a matter of the Tigers ponying up enough money. If they are unable to, then we could see a team like the Blue Jays really get their guy they were hoping to get this offseason. I know they were looking to bring in Juan Soto, but if you get Alex Bregman, that's a very nice consolation prize. Bring some positivity back into that organization. And I think he's the perfect free agent for them to sign. We've discussed this before, but Bo Bichette, Vlad Guerrero Jr. are free agents after the end of the year. If they get Bregman in there for, say, a 7-year deal, $30 million per season, if Bichette leaves in free agency, you immediately plug in Bregman and you just keep on chugging. Now, the minor league system isn't exactly great for Toronto. They don't have a lot going forward for them as far as payroll considerations, but that just means they're a blank slate and can afford to make big investments in free agency over the next couple of years. There are a couple more teams that are going to be added to that, or the group of teams that can really afford big name free agents. We're talking about the Washington Nationals that next year are going to be competing in those pools. The Giants dipped their toe in this year, but they'll go full force next year. The Rangers are going to have roughly $30 to $40 million to spend, I'd imagine, on a starting pitcher. But there's going to be no shortage of teams with money to spend. The Blue Jays getting Bregman would be one way to at least mitigate the damage if they lose Vladdy and Bo Bichette, but we'll see where he goes. Your Blue Jays suffer enough. They have suffered quite a bit. I think they're going to suffer a lot more, though, if they don't get a marquee free agent this offseason. VPC ZX, Upside Sports Network. I finally won the World Series on the show, franchise mode, with the Blue Jays. Congratulations, my friend. Wish I had time to play the show nowadays. Be very nice. Nicholas, must be a bonus to play in Anaheim with Mike Trout on the DL. Well, I mean, I've kind of been hard on the Angels, so I try to limit my conversation on them tonight. But you guys already know my position on them. They're a team that should be going through a full rebuild right now. Short-term deals, low-cost contracts, maximize their playing time for younger players on their roster. Develop them slowly. Don't rush them to the big leagues like they did with Shanuel and Neto. And just kind of develop is the name of the game. I don't like the contract for Kikuchi that they signed. I wouldn't like the addition of Alonso, Santander, Bregman, whoever else they decide to bring in, because it short-circuits their offseason. It short-circuits the plans to get back to contention. Remember, this is a team when they had a fully healthy, top of his game Mike Trout and fully healthy, top of his game Shohei Ohtani, and couldn't crack the postseason. You're telling me Mike Trout at 50% of the games, or 50% availability with maybe a half of what he had the ability to do when he was healthy is better than what you had originally with Ohtani and a fully healthy, Mike Trout back then? Santander's the missing piece? I don't buy it. But that's where we'll kind of end it for the Angels. I just hope that they come to their senses. Perry Manassian finally says his piece to Artie Moreno and says, hey, I went through this thick and thin with you with Shohei Ohtani. I let you completely destroy this organization. I gave you one ultimatum. I told you, hey, if you go this route with Shohei Ohtani and it doesn't work and he leaves in free agency, I get to run this team the way it should be run from a baseball perspective. And that's what I would do if I'm Perry Manassian. I put my foot down with Artie Moreno. And so be it if he fires me. I would know I'm at least hireable somewhere else, even though there's going to be some serious questions to answer about how he handled Ohtani towards the end there. I think the only defense there would be Artie Moreno, Artie Moreno, Artie Moreno. I think that's the only way you convince him. and then the front office you're interviewing with says, well, aren't you the general manager? Aren't you supposed to speak truth to power? Aren't you supposed to set this course back in the right way? Yeah, but he signs my check. Yeah, you could have easily quit and walked out if he was doing something wrong for the baseball organization as a whole that was going to set your team and your organization back a full decade. Again, we'll stop there with the Angels. I don't want to go too far there. All right, Verlis. I'm a Cardinals fan. I'm not buying. They won't trade Hesley. Texas would be a great spot for him. That's kind of what I'm saying. I don't see Hesley as this, piece that's a linchpin for their future. He's got 1 year left on his deal. What are you waiting for? You're waiting for him to blow out his arm in April, get hit by a line drive, and be out and be unable to be traded by the deadline? You're waiting for him to have a 5 ERA by May 5th? Is that what you're waiting for? Because right now, he's one of the best relievers that could be traded at this before we get to spring training. I think Ryan Presley's in that category as well. I think both of them should be moved before spring training. I think Presley definitely will be. I think the Tigers are a great fit there if they don't get Kirby Yates. But that's kind of my landing spot for Presley. For Hesley, I think Texas would be a great spot if Yates ends up going elsewhere in free agency. Jack to the Nats. I could see that one, but they have so many good young pitchers in that rotation. They already brought back Trevor Williams. They brought in Mike Soroka. I don't think they have a need for a starting pitcher like Jack Flaherty on their roster. I think they've got some really good young options that are going to fill out that rotation during the season. And then those 1 year deals that they signed this year with those guys is going to free up some more money for them to add in free agency next year. I don't see the need for Flaherty with the Nationals. Mark Hardwick, appreciate you joining us. Hesley and Yates, I would think would make Texas a World Series favorite. I don't know if it would make them a favorite. I think American League favorite, possibly. Yankees, to me, are the favorite. I think there's too much uncertainty in regards to bounce-back seasons from Texas offensive pieces. I think there's too much risk as far as injuries to kind of consider them the favorite. I think the Yankees are a better team overall. Granted that they have a solid team from an injury perspective. If they miss games just like anybody else, then we'd have the same question marks there. But Texas, you already have those question marks, whereas you don't necessarily have the same questions that the Yankees do. So I still think even if they bring in Yates and Hesley, I'd still consider the Yankees probably the favorite. As a Rangers fan, I'd still pick the Rangers. But I think the consensus would be the Yankees are the better team, at least until they prove themselves to be healthy and the offense back to where it was in 23 when they won the World Series in Texas. Nicholas, Jay's got to pay big to get anyone due to the taxes. Yes and no. I think it's more about where they are as far as an unstable organization. You look at the structure right now, the entire team could have a completely different look next year. You're talking about the team that's coming to recruit you to join the Blue Jays, the front office, the manager, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, all those guys could be gone by the trade deadline if things go poorly. And then you're signed on for 5, 6, 7 more years if you're Santander or Bregman. Not exactly, conducive to a positive environment after this first year. Not saying this year's going to be any, picnic either, because they're in a very difficult division. I don't see there's a cakewalk to win a wild card in the American League. I think you're going to have at least one team come out of the Central. I think you're going to have one team come out of the West. That leaves one other wild card spot up there, and the Red Sox are going to be vastly improved. Rays are going to be better with McClanahan back in that picture. Yankees are the Yankees, and as far as the Orioles, they still need another starter there. So I don't see a path to them getting a wild card easily if you're a Blue Jays fan. All right, Morgan, welcome in. Appreciate you guys joining us. Got a couple of new faces in our chat right now. Got about 80 of you guys with us. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe if you wouldn't mind. Really does help us out. Trying to see how far we can grow this channel. If you wouldn't mind helping us out and join us every single night as we break down the latest from the hot stove season. Santander may be signed with the Blue Jays. I think that's the consensus right now. I'm playing the show right now with the Tigers. Tigers are a good team to play with on the show. I like building poor teams and building them up. So, for instance, I would start with a team like the White Sox who had 40 wins and change. This past season, I'd try to build them up and try to make them a World Series contender. I enjoy doing something like that. I like building a team from the bottom up. Cubby, welcome in. Cubs should sign Flaherty and then use that as another selling point, a.k.a. 6-man rotation for Sasaki, I think is your point there. I think there's a lot of rotations that are leaning towards a 6-man rotation this year, not just because of bringing in Sasaki, but just for health, lengthening out their rotations, allowing more rest, decreased pitcher injuries, versatility in their rotations as well. For instance, the Red Sox are looking at a six-man rotation next year. I think the Rangers are going to be looking at one. Yankees, to a certain extent, could be. The Mariners could be if they move off of Luis Castillo and bring up a couple of arms. Dodgers could be very much as well. There's no shortage of teams that could be using a six-man rotation next year, and it's not necessarily a function of just Roki Sasaki. As far as Flaherty to the Cubs, I think that would soak up a lot of their money that they still need to add a closer with and a couple of offensive pieces. Not really sure if that's the best option for the Cubs as far as spending their money. I would rather split up my money a little bit. For instance, say Flaherty gets the market that he was really hoping for and gets 5 years at $100 million, a Jordan Zimmerman level contract. First, kind of let that soak in. Do you think Jack Flaherty is on par with what the Detroit Tigers gave to Jordan Zimmerman when he was coming over from the Washington Nationals? 5 years, $20 million per season. I think Flaherty could think that's a very legitimate offer right now in free agency. I just wonder if somebody worries about the longevity of Flaherty and the success that he has year over year. Has a great first half with the Cardinals, or at least a decent first half, and then completely craters with the Orioles. Has a great first half with the Tigers, falters in the second half, and implodes in the postseason. I wonder if somebody's really willing to pay $100 million for that, even though he was pretty good in that first half with the Tigers. You're paying for at least half a season of good performance, I guess, and you're hoping that he can kind of keep this thing afloat and learn to kind of even out his performances from the beginning to the end of the season, not have so much, so much volatility in his performance. But for Flaherty, that would be a great contract, 5 for $100. I just wonder about the wisdom of doing something like that rather than an Andrew Heaney, where you might get him for 2 for 25, $12.5 million, and then you use the other $12 million or $8 million on a closer, or split it up between a couple of bats, however you want to do it. But I don't necessarily like the idea of them getting Flaherty. Randall, welcome back. Appreciate you joining us. I love how you constantly are communicating with us on our videos. Thank you guys for commenting, even when we're not live. It really does help out our channel, so I wanted to say thank you for that. Give up on the Angels. They should have traded both Ohtani, Trout, and rebuilt the farm system. What a waste. I mean, you guys know my thoughts as far as how they've dealt with Ohtani. Mike Trout really doesn't have trade value right now. In fact, you'd have to attach an asset to him, a premium asset, to offload that salary. He's a great player in name only at this point in his career. He's not available. His bat's nowhere near where it used to be. I think he's going to retire as a member of the Angels. I don't think you're going to be able to find a taker for him at this point. As far as rebuilding the farm system, that's exactly what their priorities should be right now. So we'll see if they can get it done. But I wonder if they're going to short-circuit it and end up missing the postseason for the next 10 years if they do this type of thing. VPC ZX. Nicholas, I am a Canadian citizen, and I know that we have more taxes in America, but we also are more regulated in all aspects of our country. Furthermore, our tax dollars don't go to His Majesty. All right, I like that one. But as far as like the taxes and so forth, I don't want to get too much into the political side of things. Yes, you get what you pay for when you're paying in taxes. Do you get every penny of what you give in? No, that's not even the case here in the U.S. You pay, even if you don't have kids, you're paying for the school district in your city, whatever the case may be. Canadian taxes, American taxes, one state's taxes being higher, one state's taxes being lower. You recoup your taxes via real estate. You recoup your taxes via sales tax. However the tax system is in those states or countries anyway, it's all a part of the of the whole financial business of baseball. If you're looking to sign in Texas, you don't have to pay an income tax, but your real estate taxes will be a little bit higher. That's how they recoup some of their money that way. For instance, if you're in Canada, you have a higher tax rate period, but you get more for the money that you're giving in taxes as well. But as far as it relates to baseball, you have to consider that as far as the overall value of the contract. You have to wonder about the value of the contract for yourself. Is that enough money for what you were hoping to have? Are you comfortable with the city? Are you comfortable with the lifestyle that you have in the place that you're going to sign for 5, 6, 7 years of your career? That's something to take in mind. And remember, if you don't get a trade or a no trade clause, you could very well be traded and be on another team and in a different tax bracket. And remember, it's baseball. It's a 162-game schedule. You're playing 81 games in that city. The other 81, you're in a different tax bracket again because you're subject to the taxes in the cities and the states in which you play. So kind of keep that in mind as well. While taxes might be a factor, they're not going to be the deciding factor for anybody, I don't believe. Alrighty, let's try to catch up on a few of these comments here. Jason, thank you for the thumbs up. Appreciate the like. Got about 30 of them right now with about 70 of you guys. If you guys wouldn't mind helping us bump up our likes and subscribe, we'd really appreciate that. You're welcome, Cubby. Glad I could help you out. Cubs currently have about $50 million before Tier 1. It's absurd they want to stay under Tier 1. I would love Flaherty on a 3-year deal with opt-outs. I mean, I get the reasoning behind that, and I'll say it with this reasoning. Kyle Tucker is signed for 1-year deal. So say he decides to leave in free agency. Do you really want to be paying Flaherty for an extended period of time without having Kyle Tucker on this roster? I would say probably not. You don't want to continue to lose pieces off your roster, but at that point, you've already invested in Kyle Tucker. He decided, I don't want to be here anymore, so you need to probably go into a rebuild phase with the Chicago Cubs. They're all in on 2025. I wonder if they're in a very similar boat, less publicly anyway, than the Toronto Blue Jays. However, they've been able to do things via trade at least to be able to at least move around their roster a little bit, show some progress in the offseason. They trade Bellinger to save some money. They bring in Kyle Tucker. They give up Paredes and a top prospect in Cam Smith, who is now the number 1 prospect in the Astros system. But at least they're shoving their chips to the center. They try for Jesus Luzardo. Medicals come back not very clean, and so they said, the heck with that. With the money they saved on Bellinger, now they have to address 2 big needs, a number 5 starter and a closer at the back end of the bullpen, and they still haven't addressed the lineup overall. Cubs have a lot of work to do. I don't necessarily like the idea of Flaherty, but I get the idea of a 3-year deal. I just think he's going to try to go for the long-term security rather than a short-term deal, even if there are opt-outs in it. Remember, he's had up and down performances each of the last 2 years. He only got, $9 million in free agency last year. He wants to get the bag this offseason. He's already gone the short-term route. I don't think he's going to go the short-term route again on a 1-year with an opt-out kind of a thing after that. Nando, what's your prediction for Tanner Scott? My prediction is still that he goes to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Deferrals, backload the deal, all that kind of thing. I think he's probably going to get 4 with the Dodgers. I'd say probably 4 for 60, 4 for 65 with another team. If he decides to go elsewhere and wants the money up front rather than the deferrals, maybe he gets 4 for 55. But I think he ultimately ends up with the Dodgers. Rendon hurt the Angels too. Yes, he certainly did. Paranormal, any news on the Yankees? Not too much news. We talked a little bit about them in our live earlier today. They're looking for a second baseman, third baseman type of player, somebody who can come in there, be a glove first type of a guy to help out their infield defense. They were in there for Kim. They were one of the only teams that was publicly mentioned as having or at least having discussed Kim. Hee-Sung Kim, who ultimately went to the Dodgers 3 for 12. That would have been a type of contract they could have easily afforded. They're not going to be able to afford Bregman, as much as I'd love for him to go into that lineup. I think he'd be a great impact bat for them. That's not happening. Sounds like Arenado is unlikely as well because Stroman's still on that roster. They need to offload his salary first and get the Cardinals to be able to eat a healthy portion of Arenado. Unlikely to happen as well. I think they're going to be left with a guy like Jose Iglesias on free agency or in trade with Jose Miranda of the Twins. Somebody like that. The bullpen, they're still looking for a left-handed reliever. They've been connected to Chafin. They're also looking for an 8th-inning guy. They've been connected to Tanner Scott. I think they could use a back-end starting pitcher or a swing pitcher anyway. Somebody who can be a late inning or a long reliever out of the bullpen anyway, and a spot starter. There we go. That's the words I'm looking for. A spot starter when needed, especially if they move on from Stroman. Somebody a 1-year, $4 million deal, something like that. Martin Perez comes to mind as a pitcher who would fit that description. Michael Lorenzen would be another one who could fit that description as well. Travis, welcome in. I can't remember if you've been with us before, but if you are new, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Travis, Cubs rotation could be really deep if Cade Horton and Ben Brown are good to go, especially after Sasaki comes on board. Those are big risks, my friend. Those are big risks. Those are question mark, question mark, question mark. Sasaki, they're one of 6 teams that are currently a favorite for his services. Ken Rosenthal stating that they're the most frequently mentioned as being favorites for his services. The teams that are still in there or at least known to be in there for Sasaki: Yankees, Mets, Cubs, Rangers, Padres, and Dodgers. I still think the Dodgers have a little bit of an edge over every one of the other teams combined, but we'll see where he goes. He's still going to meet with all the teams that I just mentioned at their facilities, and we won't really know where he's going to go until January 15th. VPC ZX, plus there's provincial territorial because we have provinces and territories and federal taxes. Yes, kind of like state taxes, city taxes, those kinds of things. All right, Matthew, Roki is going to the West Coast. I think that's the general wisdom. At least the belief is that he'll go out to the West Coast. Mariners are a team that's been mentioned with him as well. They aren't necessarily seen as a favorite, but a team that should be at least recognized as at least having interest and at least could get a meeting because of Ichiro, their connection to international players, etc. John, Orioles acquired. Let me see if I can catch up here. Orioles acquired Morton because they are about to trade Hurstead, Mullins, and Kramer for Framber Valdez. That's the word on the street. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. We kind of floated that idea out about a couple of weeks ago. If Valdez does not get a contract extension done with the Astros, I think he's the more easier to get extension to get done than Kyle Tucker. That's why they went and moved Tucker first. But Valdez, if they don't get an extension done before spring training, a deal with the Orioles here would make a lot of sense. They get their outfielder in Hurstead. Mullins comes in there and helps in their outfield, and it saves the Orioles a little bit of money as well. As far as Kramer, another depth rotation piece there, they would miss having a number one option at that rotation. They'd really be relying a ton on Hunter Brown if you're an Astros fan. But a deal like that would make some sense. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that kind of a deal came to fruition before spring training. But we shall see. Did the Orioles get a chance to talk to Sasaki? I'm sure they sent in a pitch. I did not see any confirmation that they actually met with him, though. Cubs projected payroll, 165, 65, no excuse not to extend Tucker. Here's the excuse. He's not extending. Period. He told the Astros he's not extending. He wants to go to free agency. He wants to test his value. And so when you make that trade as the Chicago Cubs, you have to fully understand he's going to free agency. It's not a whether or not he likes being in Chicago. It's not whether you throw enough money in front of him. He wants to test his value and see what he can get. And he's earned that right through his service time, be able to go into free agency and go to whichever bidder he would like to go for. If he wants to go to the highest bidder, he will go to the highest bidder. If he gets a really good offer from a team he's always wanted to play with since he was a kid, so be it. He has the freedom to do so. That's why they have this service time. They finally earned their free agency, and he wants to enjoy that free agency after this upcoming season. So if you're a Cubs fan, as much as you might love to have him sign an extension, it's not happening. I think there's a chance he could sign a deal in free agency next year with them. But then you're going to have competition with all the other teams that I've mentioned before. The Giants, the Nationals, the Blue Jays are going to be in there. I'm sure the Yankees will at least kick the tires on that one as well. And several other teams. Because Kyle Tucker is a very good player. He might very well take off this year in a new location in Chicago. Because he's going to be the carrying force in that lineup. So we'll see what he does. Randall, never been crazy about Luzardo, Michael Lorenzen, Castillo, or Flaherty. Luzardo, you already know my feelings on him. I think he's an injury every single season, under 100 innings, except for 1 year in his entire career. Castillo, I think, is a better option as a number 2, but could be a poor man's number 1. Lorenzen, I think, is more of a back-of-the-rotation starter, spot starter at best right now. And Flaherty, I think, is going to get overpaid this offseason because he's going to look for the bag. So we'll see what happens. Cubby, Hap, Seiyu, Taillon, and Nico all come off the books post-26. Yes, I'm sure the Cubs are happy about Seiyu coming off the books, but, they're going to have to go through a difficult rebuild process because where's your talent going to come from? They have some good talent coming in the minors, but not enough to keep them in contention in an ascending NL Central. The Brewers have a very young position player group that they're going to continue to ascend. Cardinals are working on doing the same, going through their quote-unquote rebuilding phase. Pirates are going to be a pitching-led team with a little bit of offense. If they can get enough offense is the question there. And then the Reds have a little bit of both. A really good elite pitching at the top, depending on if they're healthy or not. They have some really good options offensively, but I would say that the Cubs would fall beneath all of those teams if Tucker leaves in free agency. And then at that point, you got all these deals coming off the books. Why not just go to a full reset? Because again, you've got the Dodgers as the behemoth in the National League. You still have the Phillies for the next couple of years. The Nationals are on the rise. The Braves have everybody locked up for the next decade, it feels like. And then you have the Mets who continue to spend and spend and spend. Where exactly is your window to win a World Series? I get why you see an opportunity this year. You bring in Kyle Tucker. You don't really see the Central as a behemoth of the division yet. You still can win it this year, and when you get to the postseason, who knows what happens. But at a certain point, you just got to realize where you are at as a franchise. And then, like I said earlier, I think the Cubs are experiencing a little bit of what the Blue Jays are having right now, whereas we're having pressure from the ownership group on the front office to go and win in 2025. And we're expecting the Blue Jays to struggle. And when they do, that front office is going to be cleaning house. The manager could be gone by the trade deadline. Cubs could be in a very difficult situation as well if they don't get to the postseason. I think Hoyer would have his job in jeopardy. I think we could see a changing of the guard, especially when the money they're giving to Counsell was expected to be a great team in that Central Division. He was supposed to make the sum of the parts greater than the actual parts themselves, and I would argue he didn't really do that in his first year in Chicago. That's why they're all in on 25, hoping that it works out better another season in. Mike, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us. If Boris is Tucker's agent, he is testing free agency. I mean, Kyle Tucker has already said he wants to go to free agency. He told the Astros that. He told reporters that as well. He's going to free agency. Teal Pinstripes. I think it's definitely the first time I've seen you in our chat. Appreciate you joining us. Jose Iglesias to the Dodgers. I don't think that would happen at this point. I think they've already signed Edman. They've got Betts. They've got Lux. They just signed Kim. They got so many options that are similar to Jose Iglesias. The only reason I would see him go to that roster anyway is as a right-handed bat against left-handers. But I don't see a fit for him on that roster, even in that capacity. So I don't think that happens. I think we're going to see him go somewhere as a platoon option. The Diamondbacks make some sense because they've done platoons at their DH and in their outfield before. Iglesias would give them some infield versatility. They already have some, but I think they could use more. But I would say Iglesias to the Yankees makes some sense as well. There's a lot of teams that could fit for a guy like Iglesias because he's only going to make like 1 year, $3 million, something like that. Cubby, Tucker definitely testing. Still, Cubs have no excuse not to swing big on signing Tucker. Exactly. They have no excuse because they have to get it done now because of what they gave up to get him. Part of the cost of that trade is losing on the future of Cam Smith, losing on the future of Paredes. And now you got to worry about 1 year of Kyle Tucker and then hope and pray you're able to convince him to stay after only 1 year in the Windy City. Randall Bregman would also be a nice fit with the O's, as would Scott, but they don't have the money for Bregman. They're not going to do something like that. They're going with their young position players. They hardly have money for starting pitching, and that's their priority right now. I would love to see the Orioles get a bullpen option. I think working Bautista back in slowly is the name of the game for them, so I would not be surprised to see them add a late inning reliever, 8th or 9th inning guy, who can take some of the late inning role away from Bautista as he works himself back into game shape as well. Let's see if I can catch up on a few of these comments. Jason, when are the Braves going to do anything? I think they're going to add a starting pitcher sometime in the next couple of weeks. Remember, pitchers and catchers report in about a month and change. There's 75%, roughly 65% of the free agents left on the board still. So we're going to see a flurry of activity over the next month. I think once Bregman goes, I think that's one of the last linchpins that's holding things up on the market as far as where teams are going to spend money. Welcome back, Graham. The Yankees have a spot starter already on the roster, J.T. Brubaker. They have no need to sign another. Well, if they move on from Stroman is my point there, where they, say they lose Stroman, I think another pitcher to come in, low-cost option to at least give themselves some options in that long relief spot starter role. JPCZX, most underrated starting pitcher. Most underrated starting pitcher. Good question. My answer for 25 would probably be Bayo for the Red Sox, I think he's probably their number 2, number 3 starter next season, depending on how you view that rotation. But I think he's going to be the deciding factor if that rotation's good enough for them to win a wild card. On the American League side, let's see who else would be in that category for me. Underrated starting pitcher. Chris Sale would have been that guy going into last year because I thought he had a nice chance to have a bounce back year. Obviously, he had a great year with the Braves. But going into 25, I'll go with, on the NL side, Michael King. I think you're going to see the value of him really be demonstrated by the Padres. Mainly because they're going to try to trade away Luis Ariz and Dylan Cease to maximize their value. Michael King's got 1 year left on his deal. He's going to sign a lucrative contract for himself, I do believe. I think they're going to get an extension done with him before the beginning of spring training. I think that's their guy they're hoping to be able to get at a controllable number, and he's going to be one of the stabilizing forces in that rotation for years to come. Now, is he the best pitcher in the National League or even on his own roster? No, but he's one of the more underrated ones out there. So that'd be my one for 2025. All right, so let's see here. So why not the Giants for Bregman? I would say mainly because I haven't really heard the Giants in on him. Let's see here. Mike Long, appreciate you joining us. Actually, the truth is that nobody knows how Sasaki will do. It's sort of a flavor of the month fever. I kind of agree with you there. We don't really know anything aside from what Joel Wolfe and Sasaki tell us. They aren't really letting anything slip. But the favorite all through this process has been the Dodgers for the better part of a year now, because of his connection with Ohtani and Yamamoto. Now, it doesn't necessarily help the Dodgers' case that he said, hey, I don't want players at these meetings when you guys come and visit me in LA or in New York. But they did have player videos that they were allowed to bring. Hey, we would love to have you, all that kind of stuff. But I think it's going to factor in a little bit less than what we would have originally thought a year ago. Now, does that mean the Dodgers are immediately less likely to get him? No. I just think that he's going to take every team and give them a real shake and see if he gets the best offer, one, if they have the best facilities, if they're the best fit to make him the greatest he can possibly be, period. And the Dodgers are one of the best at being able to convince starting pitchers or players in general that they can make them the best at their craft. So we'll see where he goes. I think it's really a 6-team race, like Ken Rosenthal said. Padres, Rangers, Cubs, Mets, Yankees, and Dodgers there. Mike, he can be independent and pitch in the most pitcher-friendly park in all the land. Well, as far as Sasaki going to the Giants, I mean, I don't hate it. I'll put it that way. I think it's a good option, obviously, for any team to be able to bring in Sasaki. I just wonder if Sasaki would view it as the same way. Having a good ballpark to pitch in does help your case. I will give you that. But where is this team really going to be in the next 3 to 5 years? Yes, I believe you're an ascending team. Your farm system leaves a little bit to be desired as far as having some development from within. The players that you were hoping to break through and be cornerstones of your organization, Luciano is looking like he's going to have to be traded as a change of scenery type piece. Harrison hasn't quite lived up to his potential. You've got an older pitcher, an injury guy in Robbie Ray, who I think when healthy is still very good. Logan Webb is your starting or your big convincing piece on the starting pitching side. On the position player side, making the addition of Willie Adames, and then all the money that you're going to have to be able to invest in this team. But there's so many teams that are in the similar boat as far as having that flexibility financially. So does that mean you're a favorite in the running for Roki Sasaki? No, but it just means you're an interesting team, one of the 20 that gave pitches. I'm sure they were one of the 20 or however many teams ultimately actually met with him in LA and in New York. And then we'll see if they make that final cut down as far as teams that he will actually visit the ballpark of and others. Musica, welcome back. What about the Reds? Any rumors? Still pretty much in the same spot where we were about a week ago. They're looking for a long reliever, back-end starter, somebody to give them some innings. Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson, or the guys that we mentioned still have interest there. They're looking for a power bat in their outfield right now. Jesse Winker's been the one that's been connected there. I have heard Jurickson Profar's name. I heard Anthony Santander, but to a lesser extent, I think they're going to go with somebody that they're more comfortable with. Probably in that Winker type of mold would be where I'd expect they ultimately go. Cubby would love for Pablo Talks to reignite. That's a trade candidate I want. I mean, every team I think would love to have Pablo Lopez. But I think that one's probably going to have to wait until the trade deadline. I think the Twins would love to get off of Correa's deal this offseason. I don't see it being likely that they move him at this point. But maybe somebody will surprise us like the Mets and say, hey, we have a chance to really solidify ourselves as a behemoth in the National League, be right there neck and neck with the Los Angeles Dodgers if we make the move for Carlos Correa and take on some of the money and have the Twins take on the other half. Twins save some money on Correa. They get a couple of pieces back in return. Meanwhile, the risk is mitigated for the Mets for a player they already wanted beforehand. So until they get that move, I don't think Pablo Lopez is the first guy that's going to be moved off of that roster, because I think that's going to be Correa. If they don't get him moved in the offseason, if they don't get him moved at the deadline, then I think we're going to be into the offseason before we see a Lopez type of a move. Mike McAvoy, Flaherty's numbers look good, but he's always injured. As a Giants fan, I want another pitcher, but do not want to pay for a 50% chance of a healthy pitcher. Injuries are a thing. Pitching injuries are up across the sport. That's why we're seeing some teams go ahead and adopt a 6-man rotation without necessarily bringing in Roki Sasaki. We talked about that earlier in the video. With the Red Sox, Rangers, Dodgers, all looking to do 6-man rotations among several other teams. Now, as far as Flaherty specifically, I think it's more about the mercurial talent, the performance on the field. Cardinals, he had up and down career his entirety of this time there. He was a Cy Young type of a pitcher at points, but he was also, a gopher ball issue guy for the Cardinals as well. That's why they were willing to offload his deal to the Orioles. And ultimately, when he was in a pennant race, he did not perform. He goes to the Detroit Tigers, has a great first half. Second half struggles a little bit with the Dodgers, and in the postseason struggles some more. So I think Flaherty's too inconsistent for my taste anyway in the open market right now. Alrighty, let's see if I can catch up a little bit here. Let's not forget about the Dodgers for Tucker in 26. That'd be another team I think could be a nice fit there. But they did give 3 years to Hernandez. 1 year to Conforto would free up a little bit of that salary. But I don't think money is ever going to restrict the Dodgers from going after somebody, even if they're well over the luxury tax threshold, etc. I think they're all about winning and winning and winning and winning, which is what you want as a fan base. And we'll see what they do. 2-year Randy, and we are glad to have him on the Dodgers. Glad to give him to the Dodgers. I actually like Teoscar Hernandez for the Dodgers. Randy, let me see here. 2 years, Randy. Did I miss something there? Anyway, Tucker isn't going back to the Cubs, according to Mike Steele. I think they're going to have a whole year to try to convince him. I do think he's going to go to the highest bidder, though, once he gets to free agency. So if he wants to go back to the Cubs, if the Cubs want to have him, they're really going to have to shell out the dollars to get it done. John, welcome back. Welcome back anyway. When the Dodgers get Sasaki, is that the tipping point where the Dodgers become the most hated team in sports? In sports, no. I don't think anybody's going to hate the Dodgers because of them getting Sasaki. I think it'd be, if we're talking about, like, I compared the Dodgers to, like, the 2011 Miami Heat when they got the Heatles together. ESPN created a whole Miami Heat page. The pep rally they held, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7 type of the thing. Dodgers would be the closest thing we've seen to that. Mets are in that conversation. Yankees are in that conversation as most hated team in the MLB. But that's not going to be because of Roki Sasaki. And even if it was, there's nowhere near the level of hate that the Heat had at that time versus what what they would have, or what the Mets or Yankees would have at any point. So are they the most hated team in sports? No. Let's see here. Cubby, probably not, but they also have so much coming off the books. There's no excuse not to splash cash on him if they ever stop acting like a top 10 market, or if they ever started acting like a top 10 market and started acting like a top 5, that would help. But again, I'll put it this way. There's a lot of teams that are going to have the financial resources to recruit a guy like Kyle Tucker. He's one of a kind anyway in the free agent market, so we'll see if they get that one done. Paige, welcome back. Wheeler, most underrated. I kind of like that one. I do think he's properly rated, though. Most underrated starting pitcher to me is Merrill Kelly. I like that one. Pivetta is underrated. I like that as well. Let's see. Trade rumors indicates 1 year, $17 million for Conforto. Yes. Dodgers are already the most hated team. I don't know about that. I think they're one of. I think the Yankees are right there with them. But I think everybody realizes the money, the ability to bring in Shohei Ohtani, the deferrals. They're probably going to be the most hated team going into next year. But I don't think that really matters. I think baseball would love to have an evil empire team that was truly dominant over the rest, because baseball is best when it has that type of a team. So we'll see if they get to that level, but I don't think it will with Sasaki's signing. You're hoping Yankees get a rise. I would love that for them offensively. I just don't think they're going to do something like that because he doesn't fit really defensively for them, really anywhere. I think you could play him probably at second base would be his best position for the Yankees, but I think they're looking for a better infield defense, and the money on Rise's deal would be a little bit of an issue for the Yankees as well. John, I think the most underrated pitcher in 25 might be Shane Baz. He is ready for liftoff. I kind of like that one too. Baz is pretty darn good. McClanahan's coming back from injury, but don't sleep on Baz. That is an overpay, Randy. Yeah. I mean, it is an overpay for Conforto anyway. Travis, if you only look at results, Javier Assad has been underrated, but as it is, because we all think the ship is going to sink eventually. Okay. Terry, me too. Let's see here. Sugano Kramer, most underrated for 25. I don't think there's a way to really rate Sugano yet. He hasn't been in the majors long enough. Kramer, I think, is properly rated. He'll have to really surprise me to go on the underrated side of things, because I think he's more of a 4 or 5 starter. I don't think there's any way that the Orioles believe he's a number 1 or 2 for them. Guggenheim manages $360 billion, so $17 million is no sweat. I like that one. Arise, yes. I do like the bat for Arise. I think he'd be great on a lot of contending teams. It's just a matter of how he would really fit. Like I said, if he's the number one, if he's your leadoff hitter in front of Judge, Seager, Alvarez, etc., I think your RBI total for those guys jumps by about 20. He's that type of an impact on your team. Your offensive numbers will be much better. And for a team like the Rangers, who struggled offensively last year, Arise would be a great get for them. Plus, they're already having a platoon over there at first base. Maybe Arise could be part of that platoon over there and just have his bat in that lineup and move him over to DH whenever Jock Peterson's out of the lineup. That would be something I could see happening there. Who could work with the Tigers if no Bregman? There was rumors about Santander. I don't necessarily buy it. I think if they miss on Bregman, more than likely they're not going to spend at that level this offseason. I think they'll try to bring in Ryan Presley via trade and maybe add one more guy on a 1 or 2 year type of a deal if they miss on Bregman. But if I had to guess right now, Bregman is going to get something worked out with the Detroit Tigers. Nicholas, not trash talking, but it doesn't seem many players want to be a Giant, almost like they don't want to be a Blue Jay. Well, that was the issue with Farhan Zaidi. I think that's really changed with the addition of Willy Adames. I think Burns would have signed there if he didn't prefer going to a hometown team like the Arizona Diamondbacks, because his home is in Scottsdale, Arizona. I don't think it's necessarily the same way it was a year ago, is my point. And the Blue Jays, I think because of the uncertainty, are not a great destination for players right now, and I think that's their issue. Giants, it was Farhan Zaidi. For the Blue Jays, it's the uncertainty with their roster, with their front office, etc. Alrighty, I apologize if I missed your comment anyway, but let's try to catch up on some of these. Paul, you think Bregman signs within the next week? Honestly, I'm hoping so, because it's been a long off-season so far. We're over halfway through with it already, and we're only a month and change away from pitchers and catchers reporting. I think he's going to sign relatively quickly, and we'll see if the Tigers ultimately ponying up the money to get it done. Randall, why do you think there are so many pitching injuries last year? I don't think there's any one reason for any of those injuries. I just think baseball's being played at a different level than what it was, or whatever it was at any point in human history. Velocity is really the name of the game. You could say velocity was the name of the game, say 10, 15 years ago, but not to this level. And just overthrowing your arm, travel ball, all that kind of thing, starting young, throwing curveballs when you're not supposed to when you're so young. All of that started to build up anyway to where arms are having to have Tommy John before they even get to the MLB draft. And then by the time they get to the big leagues, they're like, oh, well, he's only had one Tommy John. By the time he reaches the big leagues, that was never the case, say, 30, 40 years ago. Nowadays, you see that a lot more prevalently, not just at the youth level, but in the college ranks and at the major league level in the minor leagues. It's not just the major leagues only that's really been affected by that. And I think it's because of the stress on the arm by the curveball that at a young age, by trying to throw max velocity, max effort pitches all the time. Whereas, say, 30 years ago, you had pitchers, learning how to pitch, being able to use the full strike zone, using different speeds, using different velocities to be able to trick the hitter. Pitchers nowadays are just trying to rear back and throw as hard as they can for the most part as they continue to develop. Hit those numbers on the radar gun, you catch the eye of the scout and say, even if you don't have great command, that velocity does play. You get drafted, you try to develop your pitching as you go through the minors, but you're still primarily relying on that overpowering fastball to get you through the minor leagues. Let's see here. VPC ZX, how can teams compete with teams that just spend? Through development, through drafting really well, through trading pieces like the Guardians did with Naylor. As much as you might not like them trading away major league talent to recoup some future value, that's how they have to do it. And are they ever going to have the top flight player in the game? Probably not, unless they develop it from within. And even then, you're probably not going to be able to retain him. For instance, the Pittsburgh Pirates have Paul Skeens. That's why I think it's paramount for them to try to get a long-term deal done with him so young and is on that contract. He's got 5 years, 6 years away till free agency, and I think it would be behoove of the Pirates to try to get a long-term deal done with him. Otherwise, they're probably going to have to trade him by year 4 of his current deal and see what they can get in trade return. So we'll see. But different teams, go about building their teams different ways. One will spend. Another one will do a mix of it where they develop some players, and once those players work at the major league level, they'll supplement their roster around. That's probably the best way to do it, a combination of spending and development. And then, of course, there's the all draft, all development angle, and all trade angle with no free agent spending. That's a little bit tougher to be able to thread the needle because you can't, buy your way out of a mistake. But at the same time, if you buy some player in free agency, it could tank all of your other, aspirations as a team. Whereas a team like the Yankees struggle to develop consistent players outside of Judge. They've had some success, obviously, over the years. A great success, anyway, in the late 90s. Jeter, Mariano Rivera, among others. They had a really great team back then, and they were known for developing players and then supplementing at that time. But as far as teams that were completely built through free agency, those usually struggle. So we'll see what happens with the rest of the offseason as far as where teams decide to spend their money. But there's different ways to try to build a roster. Warriors are worse as far as most hated, possibly, but I think they've struggled over the last couple of years to the point where now they're kind of getting more likable. Steph Curry's become a more likable character as he's gotten older because how much longer are you going to get to watch one of the greatest shooters we've ever seen in NBA history? Welcome back, Anthony. Who is one prospect from another organization that you're excited to see how they play out in the majors? Roman Anthony for the Red Sox. I'm really curious to see how he does. What's his name? Dalton Rushing for the Dodgers as far as players I'm looking at in 25. As far as prospects overall, I'm hoping Drew Jones gets back to being the player that we expected out of the draft. That's one player I'm looking at. Jordan Lawler, because of the local area connection anyway, as well for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Other prospects, I'm sure there's a few that I can't think of right now, but those are just a couple off the top of my head. Let's see here. Deferrals have a way of coming home to roost and hurting a team financially. Not a fan of the practice. Yes, but as far as hurting them, I think that's a little bit of an overstatement. The easiest one I can think of is Bobby Bonilla. I think the Mets would argue that it's actually a good thing for that Mets organization because Bobby Bonilla Day is a thing. You can sell merchandise with his name on the shirt. That's a way to recoup the money. It's only $1 million a day for 25 years, I think is what it was. I think he's still going to get paid for like another 10 years. I think the Mets would say the amount of money that they are making off of the Bobby Bonilla Day-ness of the deal is well worth it. Plus, the acquisition itself helped them at the time. Well, did it give them everything they possibly could have hoped for? Probably not. And I think the team at the time would have said, hey, we're giving this deferral. We really don't like doing it, but we got to do it. Is it really a big problem nowadays, though, for $1 million? No. That's, league minimum type of salary stuff. They aren't worried about $1 million. Now, as far as deferrals in today's game, where you're deferring almost the entirety of Ohtani's money, that's a little bit different there. And who knows what the salary structure is going to look like in 20 years. But the Dodgers are certainly going to have to be responsible for that money even then. Let's see here. Randy, let me see here, trying to catch up on these comments. Report out late today of LA indicated Roki is deciding between the Pods, Giants, and Dodgers. Really? Let me head over to X and see if I can find that report. I see nothing. So if you wouldn't mind sending us that, I would love to see it. Because I've heard nothing coming out of Roki's camp or from the agent Joel Wolfe to indicate where he would necessarily consider a favorite at the moment. Anthony, with Farhan, do you think he would have done well to go to a smaller mid-market team like Miami or Tampa to be the GM instead of San Fran? I do, because his biggest issue was really the free agency. He couldn't get it right. His platoon system with Gabe Kapler, I think that would have been he and Gabe Kapler were just a great mix, a great tandem for that 1 year when they got 107 wins. But they could never get it right after that. Maybe getting some young players to really buy into that type of a system early is the best way to go. So I would say in a smaller market, it probably would have gone over better. Is there one pitch you wish more organizations taught their young prospects on the pitching side? For me, it's either the screwball or the forkball. As far as a pitch, I love the sinker. I mean, it's a really great pitch. It really decreases home runs if you can locate it really well. Just sinkers, just being able to use movement top to bottom, not just east and west. I think that's an underutilized skill. I think the Rockies, for instance, would be a much better team if they taught their pitchers more sinkers than trying to use more curveballs, that type of thing. Using velocity, change of speeds, those kinds of things, rather than just going curveball and just pure straight hard ball, just velocity, trying to overpower hitters. Alrighty, what is the first thing that comes to mind when you see fifth inning? First thing that comes to mind when I see the fifth inning? Starting pitcher, if he can last through the fifth inning, honestly. Hello, welcome back, Yodel. Appreciate you joining us. Not any moves really today. We saw Morton go to the Orioles anyway, 1 year, $15 million. Ha-Seong Kim go to the Dodgers, 3 for 12 with an opt-in for 2 more years after that. Those moves were yesterday. Didn't really get much today anyway, though. Fly, MLB needs to get rid of comp picks and make international draft. Well, that was their goal the last time they tried to get the CBA done. They were trying to get it done within a month after they decided, hey, let's go ahead and hang it up. We got enough of these issues solved, only the international draft issues left. They still haven't resolved it, though, and it's been a few years later. The CBA ends, I believe, after the 27 season, and they've got, 12, 13 big-ticket items. That's very likely going to result in some type of a work stoppage. Let's see here if I can catch up on some of these comments. Anthony Michael, do you think it's harder in today's major leagues to do the middle ground where you develop your own talent and supplement it with great or elite veterans instead of doing or going to the extreme? No, actually, I think it's fairly equal on both sides. But I think the easiest way to do it and the correct way to do it is the way I would go. By spending your money, you're really going high, really putting your owner out there on a limb financially. Does that make you a better team overall? I don't think so. I think you have to have some mix of young players that are able to develop within your system. You have build a culture. A team isn't just about the stats on the back of a baseball card. Yes, to a certain extent, performance is a big, big factor of it. But you still have to develop a team, how we're going to play, what we want to do in these situations. If this and this and this happen, do we want to walk a guy in this situation? Do we want to how do we want to control the speed on the base paths? Where do we want to play our defense? All those kinds of things are different. That if you have younger players developed in that system, they're easier to coach in those situations, to manage, if you will. And not to say that veterans couldn't do so, but they're more entitled. They've seen it. They've done it all. And you don't necessarily have that camaraderie. It's more of a mercenary type team. And not that there's anything wrong with it. I just think the best way to go about it is to develop first, get up to the major leagues like what the Nationals have done. They went the trade route, got some really high-end blue chip prospects in there. Most of them have looked pretty good so far. Some of them haven't, and they're going to have one more year to see what pieces are good for their long-term future, and then supplement with free agents after that. Very rarely do you see teams, completely build out their roster for during free agency. The other end of the spectrum, though, we see quite a bit with teams developing and drafting prospects, trying to get them up to the major league level, keeping them in or keeping that team together as they get through their first 3-4 years together, and then that 4th, 5th year hit, they trade those guys away and cycle it all over again. It's just different ways of building a team. Either way of choosing to buy a World Series or develop through your farm system, I like a combination. Would you like to see how both Thomas White and Noble Meyer from Miami play out in the majors? Mayer, yes. I haven't watched too much of Thomas White. I think in order for it to be more fair and balanced, what needs to happen, the teams who are consistently over the apron need to get their draft picks in the first round taken away. No. I like the way baseball's done it. Now, if you're for harsher penalties or for lesser penalties as far as spending or not spending anyway, I could hear the argument there, which I think is what you're trying to say, but I don't think that the penalties right now are too onerous on teams where they can still operate and do what they need to do. But at the same time, Players Association wants those contracts, wants the ability for teams to not be penalized so much for trying to bring in one of the qualifying offer players. Now, if you take away the qualifying offer player, then I think you could, get rid of some of the other issues, really hammer down on that first apron, second apron issue type of a thing. But for right now, I like the system that they have. Let's see here. Player time, the 5th inning equals Yankees Game 5 debacle. Okay. Let's see. Anthony Michael this season. Who would be the best fielding independent pitcher as a starter or reliever? DeGrom if he's healthy. That's a cop-out answer. I'd say probably a reliever if I had to say, if I'm choosing a starter or a reliever. Relievers usually more high-leverage guys. They're more specialized, and you can usually manage a lower ERA, a lower FIP, a lower everything if you're really dominant in that one inning of work. Jordan, welcome back. Have we had our daily rant on the Angels? A little bit. We touched on the Angels. Didn't want to get too deep into them because like I said, I'm trying to hold it in because I know it's coming. I'm just kind of biding my time. We'll see how it goes. I think that was probably around the 20-ish minute moment, or 20-ish minute mark, if you wanted to check that one out, Jordan. It wasn't a big one, though. And who will have the best whip? Probably a reliever as well. Cubby, another couple of weeks go by, and it felt like Bregman will get a belly type of a deal. I don't think he'll take that short of a deal. He's going to beat Willy Adames. I think the only question is how much does he beat Willy Adames? Does he get 8 years, or does he stay with 7? But I think he's clearly going to get above $200 million. Mike, when I played in the American Legion ball, pitchers on our team were not allowed to pitch curveballs or any other exotic pitches. That's kind of what, as far as like younger pitchers, they should be doing. I know most managers don't allow their pitchers to actually do that. You know, like middle school baseball teams, travel ball teams at that age, because even the leagues will outlaw those. But every now and again, you'll find a pitcher just working on it in the backyard with his dad and just trying to develop that pitch. And that is too young of an age to do that kind of a thing. I mean, I remember this, just to kind of tell you guys how much I love baseball. I think all you guys, you know, may have played Little League at one point or another, but we were living at a rental house anyway, and we had this space in between two bushes where there was an exposed brick wall. And in chalk, I drew a little, you know, strike zone box on the wall, and I took about, I don't know, several paces back, almost to the back fence, because it was a narrow-ish yard. It was kind of long this way, but you know, I kind of made the best of it. Kind of went all the way back to about the clothesline, which is about as far as the Little League mounds were at that time. And the one thing I always worked on was trying to hit my locations, trying to hit those chalk lines on the right and left side of the plate, working on my location up and down. Because when I was pitching in Little League, that's what I would do. I was really good at location. I wouldn't walk a whole lot of guys. And then, of course, you get the coach's son on the team, and you're no longer the pitcher. And that was basically the end of that. And the one thing I really enjoyed about pitching, you know, learning to play the game that way, is that I learned how to pitch the right way. I wish all pitchers did something like that. I wish they didn't try to always curve it. Of course, you try to throw the curveball once or twice just to see what it looks like. You experiment with the different pitch grips. I think it was back when Roger Clemens had a little leaflet that he put together at the time. When I think it was around the end of his tenure with the Yankees, when the Little League teams got a little pamphlet with how to throw different pitches. And on there was how to throw the curveball with a big old note that says, "Do not throw this. Do not. This is literally just the pitch grip." Or you could even go to a sporting goods store and you could buy a little baseball with different colored dots on it as to where you'd put your fingers on the ball and learn to throw those pitches. Don't throw those pitches before it's time. But I just really enjoyed doing things like that when I was younger, and just made me reminded me of all the fun that I used to have doing that. Had the wind up baseball, you hit it around the pole or whatever, you wrap it around, just kind of bounces back around, and then kind of like a tether ball, comes back around, you hit it again, get back in your stance, comes back around, you hit it again. Just teaching you good habits of getting your swing, getting your timing down, getting your bat head out in front, coming level with your swing. And just, youth baseball needs to focus on more of those type of things rather than how hard does the radar gun say. No matter where the ball goes, what does the radar gun say? And I think pitchers focus on that a little bit too much. Alrighty. See if I can catch up on a few of these comments here. I enjoy I like that, Jordan, but they are a tough franchise to root for because they make poor baseball decisions. I'm hoping they make smart ones going forward, but I have my doubts. Anthony Michael, is it harder for a starter because of the amount of innings they throw to have a great whip? It is. Smelly, do you think competitive balance picks are a huge advantage? I think they do make a big difference to some of those teams like the Brewers, teams that utilize those picks effectively. I know the Rangers, when they traded Alex Claudio to the Brewers years and years and years ago, I say years and years, it's probably been 4 or 5 years now, they got a competitive balance pick back, and they utilized those picks to the best that they could, and I think it helped develop those farm systems. Now, if you're in a smaller market team, you can use those picks to help supplement your roster. We saw a little bit of that already this offseason by trading a competitive balance pick. I can't remember who was the trade for earlier this offseason, but having those picks to be able to move around is great. I think Major League Baseball, that's the next step for their draft to make it even more intriguing to watch. They've done a nice job with the product, but allowing all of their picks to be traded would be the next step, I believe, for Major League Baseball. You don't have dumb owners and GMs anymore just willing to give up an entire draft just to bring in a eighth inning reliever. They're going to understand the value of those picks, the premium those picks have. You don't really have like a Mike Ditka who gives away all of an entire draft in the NFL for Ricky Williams. You're not going to have that in Major League Baseball. Baseball's advanced to the point where they should be trusted, at least the GM should be trusted to make those important decisions for teams, to not give away an entire draft class for one player or to acquire one player in free agency. Alrighty, what do you think the eephus pitch or why do I think the eephus pitch disappeared and now tons of organizations are teaching it anymore? You started Zoom or knuckleballs being taught. I'm not a pitching coach, so I'm not even going to begin to try to clarify why that might be. I'm guessing it's probably just the effectiveness of it, and that they understand the effectiveness of velocity works a lot better in today's game. Let's see here. Cubby, while Breggs could get $200 million, I think there's a reason he's still available. Most notably, his walk rate was cut in half and chase rate skyrocketed. He's 30 plus. His swing doesn't translate to all parks. I think that's part of it, but I think the bigger reason is money. I think that the money is the biggest issue right now. I think the Tigers would love to have him in there no matter what the swing looks like, what the chase rate looks like, what the walk rate looks like. They understand what they're getting in the player. They're getting a player who's been in the playoffs, knows how to win. And you can't really put a number on that, but he's also a productive hitter. Will he be as productive as he gets into his late 30s? Probably not, but he's still in his prime right now. But you're going to have less of his prime than, say, a player in his 20s coming out. That's why Juan Soto signed the 15-year deal. Bregman's going to sign for probably half of that, maybe less than half of that as far as length, because he is an older piece. So I still say Bregman goes to the Tigers. At least I think that's where he's going to go. If the money is, if they get the money figured out. If it doesn't, then we could see the Cubs jump in there, the Blue Jays jump in there, the Giants could jump in there, the Angels. But I still think the Tigers are the favorite at the moment. Jordan, I remember Little League. I hit 2 home runs in 1 inning. Then my wrist decided to fall apart. Ouch. That sucks. Sorry about that, friend. Yeah, I remember we had this one kid. His name was Hollywood. Of course, every Little League team seemed to have a guy that was named Hollywood at that time. Big, tall kid, strong, lanky, brand new to the area. He just came in, and first 5 at-bats that he had with our Little League team, he came into Little League about a game or 2 into the season already, and he was immediately our best player in the lineup. He hit 5 straight home runs to start his time with our team, and the coach, had to take him out because of Little League rules. He had to allow everybody to play. He didn't really know where to play. He didn't really know how to field. But the one thing that kid could do was hit. So, gosh, those were some good days. But 2 home runs in 1 inning, that is rare. So, nice work, my friend. Can't remember if it was Randy Johnson said it, if it was pitching coach, or the minors taught him how to throw a curveball slider. It taught him how to control his 2-seam and force a fastball a lot better with the amount of velocity he threw with. Do you hate that both leagues are now using the DH? I actually like the DH in both leagues. Alrighty. Want to thank you guys for joining us tonight. Appreciate you guys taking the time. We'll be live with you guys again around 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Maybe even start a little bit earlier. Trying to see if I can go out to lunch with my dad and watch some football early in the day tomorrow with him anyways. Got the Red Zone package. See if we can enjoy that on the last day of the regular season. And got his Vikings game in the evening, so we'll probably have a live late in the evening if I had to guess tomorrow as well. So let's go ahead and shoot for 10 o'clock tomorrow morning is when I'm going to do the first live, and then probably closer to 9:30, 10 o'clock, depending on how the Vikings game is going as well. But appreciate you guys taking the time, hitting that like and subscribe. That you guys have really made this community really grow over the past month anyway. We've gained over 500 subscribers in just the last month alone. You guys are the reason for the success of this channel, and I want to thank you guys for deciding to make us as successful as you have. And thank you guys for interacting. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you for all the super chats that you've sent our way as well. It's been a lot of fun, and we'll be live with you guys again tomorrow. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Again, we'll be live every single day, bringing you the latest from MLB's Hot Stove, all off-season long, every single night, and then during the regular season as well. Thank you guys. Y'all have a great evening. Stay safe out there, everybody.